Edward, please stay. Written by Stephanie Cheney. Read by Stephanie Cheney. This is how I think Bella should have reacted in New Moon, and what Edward should have done afterwards. "Do you mind if I come over to your house today?" he asked before we got to the truck, beating me to the punch. "Of course I don't mind. Now?" he asked again, opening my door for me. "Sure," I kept my voice even, though I didn't like the urgency in his tone. "I was just going to drop a letter from my mom in the mailbox on the way. I'll meet you there." "Sure. He looked at the plump envelope on the passenger seat. He suddenly reached over me and snagged it. "I'll do it," he said quietly, "and I'll still beat you there." He smiled my favorite crooked smile, but it was wrong. It didn't reach his eyes. "Okay," I agreed, unable to smile back. He shut the door and headed towards his car. He did beat me home. He was parked in Charlie's spot when I pulled up in front of the house. That was a bad sign. He didn't plan to stay then. I shook my head and took a deep breath, trying to locate some courage. He got out of his car when I stepped out of the truck and came to meet me. He reached to take my book bag from me. That was normal, but he shoved it back onto the seat. That was not normal. "Come for a walk with me," he suggested in an unemotional voice, taking my hand. I didn't answer. I couldn't think of a way to protest, but I instantly knew that I wanted to. "I didn't like this. This is bad. This is very bad," the voice in my head repeated again and again. But he didn't wait for an answer. He pulled me along towards the east side of the yard, where the forest encroached. I followed unwillingly, trying to think through the panic. It was what I wanted, I reminded myself, the chance to talk it all through. So why was the panic choking me? Why was I so scared? We'd gone only a few steps into the trees when he stopped. We were barely on the trail. I could still see the house. Some walk, I thought. Edward leaned against his tree and stared at me, his expression unreadable. He took a deep breath. "Bella, we're leaving." I took a deep breath, too. This was an acceptable option. I thought I was prepared, but I still had to ask. "Why now? Another year? Bella, it's time. How much longer can we stay in Forks, after all? Carlisle can barely pass for 30, and he's claiming 33 now. We'd have to start over soon regardless." His answer confused me. I thought the point of leaving was to let his family live in peace. Why did we have to leave if they were going? I stared at him, trying to understand what he meant. He stared back coldly. With a roll of nausea, I realized I'd misunderstood. "When you say 'we,'" I whispered, "I mean my family and myself," each word separate and distinct. I shook my head back and forth mechanically, trying to clear it. He waited without any sign of impatience, eyes still cold. It took a few minutes before I could speak. "Okay, I'll come with you." "You can't, Bella. Where we're going, it's not the right place for you. Where you are is the right place for me. I'm no good for you, Bella. Don't be ludicrous." I wanted to sound angry, but it just sounded like I was begging. "You're the very best part of my life." "My world is not for you," he said grimly. "What happened with Jasper? That was nothing, Edward, nothing." "You're right, it was nothing. You promised, in Phoenix, you promised that you would stay, as long as that's what was best for you," he interrupted to correct me. "No, this is about my soul, isn't it?" I shouted furiously, words exploding out of me. Somehow it still sounded like a plea. "Carlisle told me about that, and I don't care, Edward, I don't care. You can have my soul. I don't want it without you. It's yours already." He took a deep breath and stared unseeingly at the ground for a long moment. His mouth twisted the tiniest bit. When he finally looked up, his eyes were different, harder, like the liquid gold had frozen solid. "Bella, I don't want you to come with me." He spoke the words slowly and precisely, his cold eyes on my face, watching as I absorbed what he was really saying. There was a pause as I repeated the words in my head a few times, sifting through them for the real intent. "You don't want me?" I tried out the words, confused by the way they sounded, placed in that order. "No." I stared uncomprehendingly into his eyes. He stared back without apology. His eyes were like topaz, hard and clear and very deep. I felt like I could see into them for miles and miles, yet nowhere in their bottomless depths could I see a contradiction to the word he'd spoken. I felt my knees shaking, but could not stop them. Edward, my Edward, did not want me. Everything started to shake, not just my knees, but my whole body. "Bella," I heard Edward say, concern now evident in his voice. You don't want me," I cried then. As the horrifying words kept repeating in my head, I cried more. I felt sick. Bella, Edward asked again, more concerned than before. Bella, are you okay? Edward was all I had time to say before the darkness took over. When I woke up, I was in Edward's arms, being rocked back and forth. We were in Edward's room, and the first thing I heard was Edward saying, I want you, over and over. The end.